Did you know that California Governor Gavin Newsom released over 70,000 violent criminals from California state prisons since he took office? Ever wonder where all those criminals went and whether or not they're committing more crimes? I've got the answer for you, and there are three reasons why crime is about to get a lot worse in California. I'm Carl DeMaio, chairman of Reform California. And if you're like me, you're probably noticing a lot more crime happening in California and even in your own neighborhood. You see it on TV, you read about it in the newspaper. And there are also websites like Nextdoor where your neighbors will post, my house was broken into, my car was vandalized, my packages were stolen. It's an everyday occurrence. And Californians are feeling less secure. There's a recent poll from the Berkeley IGS Institute, which shows that 78% of California voters say that crime has risen statewide, that they feel like it's risen statewide. It's a perception. We'll get to the reality in a minute. 65% of voters say that in their local neighborhood, they have seen crime increasing as well. So it's very clear that California voters are feeling less safe. And the data would back that feeling up. The latest statistics from the Attorney General's office, analyzed by the Public Policy Institute of California, shows that in 2021, homicides spiked 41.2% in the state of California since 2019. That is a staggering increase in homicides. Aggravated assaults are up 18%. And let's talk about property crimes, because the smash and grabs that you see on TV or those reports on Nextdoor from your neighbors about their home being robbed, property crimes the data show that they're only up by 2.4% between 2020 and 2021. But there is a very important caveat to those figures. You see, a lot of people in California have simply given up on reporting crime. They know that police aren't going to be able to do anything about it. They know that prosecutors won't charge those criminals with those crimes. And so a lot of folks just simply shrug it off and maybe file a claim with their insurance company, although that might increase your insurance rates. But the reality is we are seeing the property crimes go up by much more than just that paltry 2.4%. I want to share with you three stories that illustrate why crime is rising in California and what we have to do really to fix the problem. The first story is the announcement by Walgreens in December 2021 that they decided to close their stores in San Francisco. And again, this was a big surprise, but Walgreens said, nope, we're just simply not going to be able to do business in this city because property crime, retail theft. They said that the retail theft and losses in their San Francisco city stores were 500% higher than their national average for their stores. And the Retail Federation reports that retail theft in California is up 26% in the last year alone. You've got these stores closing, and it really reflects what you're seeing on TV. California in the last 2 years has become notorious for the smash and grab theft, where people will brazenly walk into a store, smash a display case, and steal goods. And the store clerks, they just simply say that management has told them not to get involved, not to try to stop it because management doesn't want to get anyone hurt. The criminals know that it is open season in California. Walgreens is simply making a common sense business decision that if the police, if the politicians aren't going to enforce the law, then it's just not a good place to do business. The second story is from April 2022, and it involves a guy named Smiley Martin. He carried out a mass shooting in Sacramento, killing 6, injuring dozens others. Now, California Democrat politicians are always hooting and hollering about gun safety and mass shootings. Well, this one's on them. You see, Smiley Martin was a felon who had served only half of his 10-year prison sentence for violence. He beat up his girlfriend. He drug her body by the hair into the street and left her there, partially unconscious. Martin had earlier been denied parole from a California state prison because the parole board deemed him to be violent. He actually had gotten into a violent altercation with another inmate and had committed other criminal activity behind bars. Certainly not someone suitable for early release, right? Well, Governor Gavin Newsom, because of his soft on crime policies, went ahead and released him on early release for, quote, good behavior. And he said that domestic violence doesn't qualify as a, quote, violent crime. Well, domestic violence has the word violence in the crime that people have been charged with. So domestic violence, apparently, beating up your spouse or your girlfriend, not a violent crime in the eyes of California politicians. So Smiley Martin was released early. And one has to wonder, would those individuals have been saved? And I think the answer is absolutely yes. How about this third story? It's about a guy named Troy Davis. Troy Davis murdered a Sacramento resident, Kate Tibbetts. Davis, who had 2 felony strikes on his record, was also arrested in June for stealing a car. Now, in any other state, grand theft auto would, with 2 felony hits on your record, would at least get you a night in jail, would at least probably put you back behind bars. But despite his violation of parole and a history of violent crimes, he was released the same day without bail. On that same day, he raped and murdered Tibbetts, killing her dogs, setting her house on fire to try to cover up the crime. Now, all 3 of these stories reflect the problems we're having in California that were self-inflicted. California politicians over the last 10 years have changed the laws. They've pushed for softer penalties, early release. They've tied the hands of police officers and prosecutors. And as a result, we are now just seeing the spikes in crimes. And I predict that crime will continue to go higher and higher. Let me talk about the 3 reasons or the 3 drivers or bad policies that we have to address. First, California politicians, the Democrats, have passed law after law limiting the ability of prosecutors to actually prosecute crimes. They don't want to charge people with crimes. Prop 47 is a perfect example. This is a bill put on the ballot by California politicians, and they claimed on the title that it was a public safety initiative. What Prop 47 actually did is it downgraded a variety of crimes from felonies to misdemeanors and then misdemeanors to absolutely nothing. That means that the smash and grab crimes are not something that are going to be prosecuted. And that's why the retail theft, the property crimes are spiking in the state of California. But it also means that other crimes that are violent, that are related to kind of the precursor criminal activity, those crimes also are not addressed. And if you don't stop a criminal when they're committing the smaller crimes, then they will graduate to more violent, more aggressive crimes. So Prop 47, tying the hands of prosecutors and police in terms of who they can actually put behind bars, who they can punish for crimes. The second problem we're having is the early release of criminals. So even if you're, able to arrest someone for a crime and you have the ability under Prop 47 to prosecute someone for a crime, California politicians and Governor Gavin Newsom, they don't want that person to actually serve their full sentence. So they have pushed for early release of violent criminals. It started about a decade ago with a bill called Assembly Bill 109. And Assembly Bill 109 basically said what we're going to do is we're going to release prisoners from state prisons and we're going to give them over to local county sheriffs for them to monitor either in the community or if the sheriff deems it appropriate or a risk to society to put the person in the local jail. Well, this just shifted the population of inmates, a big chunk of the population of inmates from state prisons where they would be serving a full sentence for a longer period of time to local jails where the sheriff said, I don't have the staffing, I don't have the capacity, so I guess we're going to release them. And also, in a lot of the blue urban areas in California, San Francisco, Los Angeles, you're going to find that the sheriff is a soft on crime sheriff. So they're not looking to keep people behind bars. They want to get them back out in the community. So Assembly Bill 109 said shift a good chunk of the population from state prisons to local jails. And then, of course, the sheriff gets to decide. And the sheriff was given no additional resources, by the way, to handle this. But then in the middle of 2016, the Democrats put Proposition 57 on the ballot. And again, they put a title on this ballot measure to try to fool voters. And they said it was the Public Safety Enhancement Initiative. So people saw public safety, they voted for it. Well, what Prop 57 did is it provided for early release of violent criminals from state prisons. It set up a whole system for the governor to deem people good behaved prisoners, well-behaved prisoners. Good behavior credits were given out, and those people ultimately are back on the streets. And look how this power has been abused by Governor Gavin Newsom. Since Governor Gavin Newsom has taken office, he's released over 70,000 inmates from state prisons. Many of them given good credits where they're not justified. Many of those individuals committed violent crimes. They're now back out on the streets, walking around. And take a look at the statistics. In 2006, we actually did have in California a prison overcrowding problem. Now, when you have a problem with overcrowded prisons, the answer is simple. Build more prisons. You don't say, well, we'll take people who've been charged with a crime and sentenced for a term in prison and basically wipe that away. No, we have laws, and laws should be enforced and punishments should be carried out. But that's not what California Democrats chose to do. Instead, they have decided to do the early release, shifting people to these jails, shifting people back out on the streets with Proposition 57. And Gavin Newsom found a very useful tool, COVID-19. In May of 2021, Gavin Newsom issued an executive order under his, quote, COVID emergency powers that allowed for the release of up to 76,000 additional prisoners from California state prisons. You know what his concern was? They might get COVID. In other words, we're so worried about a criminal getting a cold, in essence, behind bars, that we've decided to put your safety at risk by putting that criminal back out on the streets. Absolute insanity. And so today, California prisons actually have a surplus capacity. We went from having a prison overcrowding challenge to having surplus capacity. Our population has plunged from 165,000 inmates in 2006 to a little less than 95,000 last year. And now Governor Gavin Newsom is doing something quite extraordinary. I was shocked when I saw this. He's proposing to close 4 prisons. Again, just a few years ago, we were facing overcrowding. And we were saying, how do we build prisons? And we said, it's hard to build a prison because nobody wants a prison in their backyard. That's pretty much common sense. But now we're laying the groundwork for long-term problems with being able to carry out prison sentences by allowing Governor Gavin Newsom and the Sacramento legislature to close 4 prisons on their watch. Another thing that's happening to release prisoners onto the streets are what we call no bail policies. Again, Gavin Newsom and Sacramento Democrats passed a law that allowed for no bail release of prisoners. They say bail is racist. Well, tell that to the wife or the girlfriend who's been beaten up by their spouse or lover, and that person is arrested and not even held overnight, just released without bail. That's not a safe situation. And so the no bail policies have been first started out at the state level. They passed a law saying, let's just get rid of bail. The voters rejected that in 2020 with the vote on Proposition 25. There was a referenda and it was blocked. But Gavin Newsom is still trying to do no bail. And the way they're doing it is they're electing very liberal prosecutors at the local level. Not only are these prosecutors not prosecuting crimes, they go way beyond Prop 47, but they are also going before judges and saying, Judge, we're not asking for any bail. And so the soft on crime policies, no bail policies, are still happening, despite the fact that California voters voted with Prop 25 to reject no bail. And then the final thing that's happening to push more prisoners out onto the street is that there are sheriffs that are doing their job, like Riverside Sheriff Chad Bianco. These sheriffs have said they're not going to release prisoners from jail back out on the streets. They're going to do as much as they can to keep violent criminals behind bars. Well, what's happening there is that the media and the Democrat politicians are trying to smear those sheriffs. They've concocted a false narrative. They say that there are unforeseen deaths behind bars at county jails. They've done it in San Diego. They propped up this false narrative. They're doing it in Riverside against sheriffs who do not want to play ball. They do not want to do early release. And so you're seeing stories where just recently the Attorney General of California went into Riverside and said, I'm going to investigate the Sheriff Chad Bianco for irregularities and potential illegal conduct, making it seem as though the sheriff was doing something wrong when in fact the sheriff was doing everything right. He's trying to keep people safe. You see, these politicians, by creating this narrative that somehow sheriff deputies are beating people up behind closed doors, they're trying to put pressure on the sheriffs to just simply release people from jail. By the way, the fatalities in both San Diego and in Riverside, people dying behind bars, you know what it's from? It's not from sheriff's deputies beating up inmates. That's not happening. Drug overdoses and suicides. These criminals are doing this to themselves. You don't blame the sheriff for that. You blame the person who's made bad choices. The third issue that's driving crime. So the first one is not prosecuting crimes, a la Prop 47. The second issue is early release of criminals at the state level and the local level, no bail policies. The third issue is we are smearing and denigrating our police officers. And as a result, in California, a lot of police officers are deciding this ain't the job for me. They're not applying. They're not staying. They're moving to other states where actually police officers are appreciated. And I can't blame them. As a result, in virtually every police department, you're seeing major vacancies. Los Angeles, San Francisco just announced the effort to try to fill these vacancies. And in LA, the mayor says that she wants to lower the standards for hiring police officers. Wow. Whenever a police officer screws up, liberal politicians are out there blaming all police officers for the fault or the failing of the one police officer who screwed up. So lowering standards for police officers is not the way to go about this. Maybe you should respect them. Maybe you should stop calling them racists. Maybe you shouldn't be putting them on the spot for use of force policies in California that might put them behind bars, even though if they've done the job properly as police officers have done in other states. So we have got a morale crisis with policing. And on top of that, you still have the push to defund police coming up in California. It's having an impact on not only vacancies, but that then trickles down into how fast a police officer can get to your home to respond to a 911 call. Because, when you dial 911, you'd like someone there as quick as possible, right? But in the city of San Diego, they have so many vacancies on their police force because the politicians have smeared the police officers, that priority one calls, and those are priority one calls are calls involving a serious crime being in progress or where lives are in danger. So a priority one call has increased by over 15 minutes, the response time from 2018 to 2022. Now the average response time is over 30 minutes for a priority one call. Good luck. You're not going to get a police officer at your door in time. Response times to active domestic violence calls, assaults, went up by 78% between 2018 and 2022. This is outrageous. It is a real threat to public safety. The staffing shortages in police departments caused mainly by the shameful way police officers have been treated in the state of California. And the pressure continues to mount on those police officers each and every day. They know that if they do their best, they still can't serve their community like other police officers in other departments because A, they can't arrest someone because of Prop 47, or B, they arrest someone, they know that same perpetrator will be back out on the streets by nightfall. Would you stay in a job that you couldn't see the impact to the community? So a lot of these police officers are just not signing up, or they're going to other states. It is a bad situation. It's only going to get worse if these policies continue, and that's why we've got to do something about it. I urge you to join the Reform California campaign to repeal Props 57 and Props 47, to repeal AB 109, to support law enforcing sheriffs and district attorneys in each county, because we certainly don't need another George Gascon or the other fella up in the Bay Area that was recalled. You can't have a George Soros-backed prosecutor in our communities because they just won't do their job. So we have a campaign that you can access and sign up for at restorepublicsafety.org. restorepublicsafety.org. You can also learn more information about a variety of public safety topics, ranging from our efforts to stop violent sex offenders from being placed in residential communities near schools, to our efforts, of course, to repeal Props 47, 57, AB 109, and support good candidates. We also have to change who gets sent to the Sacramento legislature. And finally, we've got to get the word out to the voters, educate them on these soft on crime policies. Most people don't know that Gavin Newsom released over 70,000 criminals since he took office. Most people don't know, they're not aware that he plans to close 4 prisons when we're going to need those prisons if we start enforcing the law again. So join our effort, spread the word, contribute, sign up as a volunteer, share the information at restorepublicsafety.org. restorepublicsafety.org, and we can turn the tide against crime again in the state of California. Thanks for watching. Help us break through the censorship of the liberal media by liking this video, sharing it with your friends, and subscribe to my YouTube channel.